Rising cases of the Indian or Delta variant of coronavirus seem to have prompted a rethink of the UK's lockdown lifting. The Prime Minister said the timetable for lockdown lifting depended on data, not dates, and an increase in hospitalisations looks to dash hopes for a final end to restrictions. Let's have a look at some of the latest data with policy and strategy analyst Dr. Duncan Robertson of Loughborough University. Duncan, thanks very much for being with us. Good to see you again. So the Prime Minister has been poring over the latest data. Let's break it down and look at the data on the number of cases that we're seeing and what that tells us.
Well, we are unfortunately starting to see this sort of exponential rise in cases, and this was expected because the idea was essentially that the vaccines would be rolled out and then you would be breaking this link between cases and hospitalisations. So if we look at cases, we're starting to see what we've seen in the the first, second, third, and now this fourth wave. Is we're starting to see, cases in the 10 to 19-year-olds moving up to the 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings. Now, what we expect to happen is that's not going to go up to the most vulnerable older people because they will have had both doses of their vaccines. So we're really, seeing the patterns that we've seen before, slightly different due to vaccines. But the real thing comes from how transmissible this new Delta variant is. So the roadmap going out of lockdown was really kind of calibrated against the Alpha or the Kent variant. And this virus doesn't play fair, as we know, and it's come up with this new Delta variant that's much more transmissible. We knew it was more transmissible before we went into step 3. So to a certain extent, it was a little bit of a gamble going through to step 3. But as more and more data's come in, we know it's potentially 60% more transmissible, which really changes things significantly.
And what of that link between cases and hospitalisations and whether the vaccine is indeed severing that link completely?
Exactly, and this is the real key point that ministers were saying when we came out into step 3 is they were expecting a complete decoupling of cases and hospitalisation. So what you can do is you can sort of compare cases and hospitalisations on the chart. So this is going through from this. What we have to remember is a really quite significant wave, which was the in January. Things have been coming down, and the red line is COVID cases on the right-hand scale, and the purple line is hospitalisations on the left scale. And the thing you can see there is, as we all know, cases come first, and then it's hospitalisations. So if you look at where we are now, this is the latest data. Cases are going up; they're going up exponentially. They're doubling every 9 or 10 days. And the question is, what's happening with that red line underneath, which is hospitalisations? And that's, if you look at it like that, you can say, well, what's the problem? That line looks low. But that's where, if you sort of compare and then look at how quickly those rates of growth are, you can plot a chart of how fast cases are growing and how fast hospitalisations are growing. And I think you can see that they're going up fairly similarly. And this is bad news because it's essentially saying that link between cases and hospitalizations hasn't been broken. And of course, hospitalizations are relatively low because vaccines have taken their effect and fewer people are going to hospital. But the problem is, if they're growing at the same rate, it only takes a few 9 or 10 days to get that vaccine advantage really worn out by the fact that cases are still growing exponentially, and that's of concern.
So we are in this race between the virus and the vaccines. Where are we in terms of vaccine rollout, given that this particular variant requires 2 doses of a vaccine?
Absolutely, and that's the other way that the Delta variant isn't really playing fair. So we thought with the Alpha variant, you get pretty good protection after 1 dose. So really, we now know that the protection really comes after that 2nd dose. So as we can see, this is the whole of the vaccine rollout program, starting from January to where we are, say a week ago. And we can see, what's great is a huge number of older people have had their 2nd dose. But of course, not everybody who has their 1st dose in this older population has their 2nd dose. And there's still some people who are potentially vulnerable there. but really we're below half of the population having their second dose. And of course, if you include children in that calculation as well. So we haven't got to those sort of dark green ranges for, 40 and 50-year-olds and younger. So we still have half the population which is vulnerable to this virus, and that's why these extra few weeks are going to allow more people to get their second vaccines. And I think that's why it's pretty essential that this delay is given tonight.
The one question that I keep being asked by people, though, is what difference does 4 weeks make? What happens when we get to the end of 4 weeks and the government looks again at the data? What's to say we're not going to end up with another extension again?
Well, I don't think there is anything to say that we won't end up with another extension, because what we're trying to do is to work out this link between cases and hospitalisations. Now, eventually there will be, not enough people basically for this virus to go through, and we're going to see, a flattening off of cases, and we're going to see a flattening off of hospitalisations eventually. And the question is, how long is it going to take to get there? And is this link weakened or broken? So I don't think it's broken. It may be weakened. So we're going to get more data about hospitalisations. And of course, you have to realise that hospitals are still fairly pushed, because with lockdown 1, 2, and 3, that's really stopped a whole lot of people who were going to have hospitalisations just for routine things, who are still really much in a queue and are in hospitals at the moment. So we have very little headroom for extra COVID patients.
OK, Duncan Robertson, thank you for talking us through that data there.